Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Mizner, and with me this week is the special and wonderful guest, Laura Herlocher.
Hello.
Hello, Laura, and you want to tell us what we are going to be talking about this week? In words that I may say, it is a beast of a movie. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Good choice of words, seeing as how the title is The Beast.
The Beast, or
The Beast of War.
Thank you.
Was that what you were about to say?
I was about to say it, but you beat me. The Beast of War, or just like we said, The Beast. From 1988, The Beast. This movie is quite a beast, if I do say so myself, and I can't wait to talk about it. I'm sure Laura would say the same thing. Would you? Would you say the same thing?
Absolutely not. Just kidding.
Okay. All right.
No.
Well, you heard it from her yourself. So
No, just kidding. I'm very excited to talk about this movie.
I'm very excited to talk about this movie. The Beast. It is a crazy, crazy film, and not talked about enough, if I do say so myself. But we can't wait to dive into it with you, listeners. And we're going to dive into it as soon as we get done talking about the first thing we talk about every single episode, and that is our side slurps. Side slurps. Side slurps. That's right. And if this is your first time listening to our show, the side slurps are the things that we have been doing other than watching movies. Well, let me rephrase that. It's the things we've been doing other than watching the movie we're going to talk about. So it's things we've been doing like watching television, watching some other movies, listening to music, making crafts. It could be anything the past week. So Laura, what have you been doing this past week?
Start off first with my book corner. So the book I read last week is called When the Stars Go Dark by Paula McLean. Amazing book. This really great mystery thriller about a missing persons detective who's experienced this trauma in her own life, and she kind of escapes back to where she grew up. But while she's there, she gets pulled into a missing person, a teenage girl. So it's her trying to find the girl, right? But also deal with her own trauma. Amazing. It's such a good book. I highly recommend it.
Ooh.
And other than that, not a whole lot this week to talk about. We did, though, Adam, you watched this with me. We just watched the new episodes for Love is Blind, After the Altar episodes.
Talk about drama.
I love it, though, so much. I know. I remember when the show came out, I was very much against watching it. I was just like, I am not going to like this. And then I think like a year later, you put it on one day and we're like, I just heard of this, Laura. Let's watch it. And I'm like, Adam, this is like a year old, but okay. And then, of course, we got sucked in, right? Because that's what they do to you.
It does not get more dramatic than having people not be able to see one another. They're sitting in separate rooms and they're just talking about life to one another.
Yeah, the whole idea of like finding attraction in someone through their personality and not their looks.
And we just talked about it the other week, but the television series they have now called Sexy Beast.
Same thing.
That's not quite as blind as Love is Blind. They can still see one another in Sexy Beast. They just see each other as Sexy Beast.
Demons.
So, yeah.
No, but I didn't even think about that. They are kind of similar shows. They're both Netflix reality, right? They got that whole style going down. But anyway, the new episodes are like 2 years later, so after the altar. Two of the couples got married, so they're celebrating their 2-year anniversary, right? But they bring back the whole cast, and of course there's drama and who's still together and who's not. So those are fun. We just finished those actually not long before we started recording this, so
I will say, though, there's been plenty of times that, whether be it for a job or just for personal interest, that I've had to sit through watching how to talk to people videos, things like that. And you watch reality television, and those are the times where I think those kind of how to talk to people videos really pop out in your mind, and you think, wow, these people are really talking in very interesting ways where no two people are alike. One person might be talking very calm and collected to another person whereas the next person will be talking to someone and they will not have a handle on things. They will be very
It's like
brash,
the clash of personalities.
yes, absolutely. And it's very interesting to see how two people are so different from one another. Again, one person might be very calm, they might be very collected, very chill, very relaxed. And another person, their way of approaching a situation will just be yelling at them and blaming them for everything.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You and I have kind of similar personalities and levels, I'll say. And so we don't have a lot of these, like, what I'm trying to say is I think it's crazy how some of the relationships that you see on reality TV shows, you do have these people that are polar opposites, right? And it's just crazy to me to see a couple where one person is like up here and one is way down here, and how dynamic their relationship is. And then versus you and I's relationship where we're pretty much equal. I don't know. Not to make this like a thing about our relationship. It's just interesting to see since we don't have that craziness in ours.
Reality television, it's a strange thing, man.
Anywho, that's the end of my side slurps for this week. What about you, Adam? What you been slurping?
Well, this isn't something I've actually been doing yet, but I have brought it up on past episodes, and it's my burning desire to start playing Baldur's Gate 3 again. And I have said it on prior episodes. I have actually played the game. I own the game. I've been playing into about 35 hours of the game. It's been going. It's happened. It's a great, great game. And listeners, if you've never played any of the Baldur's Gate games for that matter, at least go out there and try one of them. But the new one, Baldur's Gate 3, it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. And they're still working on it, too. I believe it's still in beta right now.
Is it still? It's been a while.
I think so. They just keep patching up the game. I don't think the entire game is quite released, but there is so much content just in the beta version itself that it's totally worth playing it the way it is. And, I mean, the game is full price, but for the package that they're giving you right now for what you're paying for it, you're getting so much of the game the way it is. Just go for it. Just play it with what they're giving you, and they're going to keep updating it. They keep updating it, and just go with it because it is hours upon hours of gameplay, and you're not going to get bored because even if you do, just start a new character. And it's multiplayer, too. It's still multiplayer. You can play with your friends if they get the game. So it's basically like a computer version of Dungeons and Dragons, essentially. So you're not going to get bored, trust me. So
you get sucked into that.
Yes.
And while you're playing, I'll sit next to you and I can read my books, play Genshin. I really want to start playing Sims again, but my computer doesn't have enough memory.
Her computer is only the Sims games and the Sims expansions, and she's already out of space. I don't even have
space to buy the new expansion, which I'm very upset about. So, hopefully Christmas, maybe I can get myself a new computer.
This is what happens when you become a nerd.
Yeah. I accept it. I fully embrace my nerdiness. I mean, it's what makes me and you cool, right? I mean, that's why we like each other, I think.
I hope so. And although I will say I haven't quite gotten back into playing Baldur's Gate 3 yet, I will.
You were downloading a big update that took forever.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I went to check on the game. Like, I wanted to start playing it again. And as soon as I went to go play it again, it was telling me I had to install a new patch for the game. And of course, the patch is 50 gigabytes. So yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I said. The game does come out with more patches. They keep updating it. Thank you, developers, for updating your games and taking care of us players. But man, that was a very large patch that I had to install. Not that I'm unappreciative. I'm looking forward to it. So that's going to happen soon enough. I will keep all of you updated when it does. Moving forward from that, though, I was watching some Olympic coverage from two of the most wonderful people out there, Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart, on the streaming service Peacock.
Is so good.
I don't even understand how they can have their own show. Well, of course I understand that they can.
He's like, am I allowed to curse? He's like, this is my fucking motherfucking show. I can say what I want.
This is supposed to be like a news show, basically, but it's Snoop Dogg's news show, so he can do whatever he wants.
Of what happened that day at the Olympics, and it's just them bullshitting, right? It's so good.
They're covering the news their way. They're covering the Olympics their way. and it is hysterical. And I guess the best way to describe it, which Kevin Hart basically gave the synopsis himself to their guest, they're combining professionalism with their own, how did he even phrase it? Personality.
I think
so
that's what the word
professionalism with personality, and they're bouncing back and forth between that. And that's how they're making it their way, is they're bouncing back and forth.
It's such a good dynamic between them too, because like Snoop
really
is so like poised, right, and quiet and intelligent, and then Kevin Hart, I mean, I think I described it to you as like he's like a chihuahua, right? He's like crazy and he's loud and he's all over the place.
I feel like you just say that because it's with Snoop Dogg.
Well, yeah,
Snoop
so
Dogg and a chihuahua.
Yeah, so but it's such a good dynamic between the two of them. I really hope they keep them around for the Winter Olympics. I think like I can just picture them covering ice skating, figure skating,
man.
and I'm looking forward to it. So I hope it stays around.
Their explanation of what the BMX situation was like was so funny. Like, yeah, man, yeah, Dad, I'm cool. Look at me. Oh
yeah, when they were pretending like they were the Olympian. I hate my dad.
I'm cool. Oh God, it's hysterical. Again, listeners, if you guys have Peacock, or just go download Peacock, get access to Peacock, check out Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart's show on there. Hysterical. Check it out. The final thing I did this past week on the music side of things, I was checking out Tyler the Creator's new album, a little more explicit. Very cool combination of what I would describe as a nice blend of his older albums and his newest album, or his newer album, that a lot of people have been checking out. I think that's a good way of describing what his newest album is like.
Yeah.
A little bit of the old, a little bit of the newer, and his newest album is kind of like a nice mix of both.
Yeah, I was going to say, that came to mind, right? Because we watched his set from Lala.
Yes.
Which was a good set. And yeah, we didn't even really know about his new stuff yet. I guess we were in the dark or something.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't even know that he had an album that just came out until I was watching his set from Lollapalooza, and he was talking about it, and I realized, wow, I must have been shut out of Tyler the Creator's music situation that was going on. And so I immediately went and checked out his new album, and I think it's very good. I think it's a step in the right direction for his music. So
nice.
Definitely check that out. And other than that, I think that puts a finish to my side slurps.
Yeah.
And it's a step towards what our real discussion of the week is, which is the Beast. The Beast.
I was gonna make a noise, but then I didn't know what noise to make.
The noise of the Beast? Which
like,
what kind of
the
beast?
Tank? I don't know. I was like, kapow! That was it. Shooting ammunition.
We're doing some vocal sound design, a cappella sound design of a tank here.
I mean, if anyone knows me in real life, they know Adam, you can attest to this. I make
one tank sound. You make one tank sound
all the time.
You do your sound of the tank, and I'll do my sound of the tank.
Well, it's just like the treads. It's just a machine. That's all I can think of. So it's just like.
We have a very broken tank here.
Well, their tank is broken in the movie also, so it fits.
Oh, spoiler alert.
But let's go back to the beginning. Give us that synopsis.
All right, so listeners, if you haven't seen The Beast, go watch The Beast. Maybe come back, or don't. Just listen to us tell you what The Beast is about. So The Beast from 1988 is all about a Soviet tank and its warring crew become separated from their patrol and lost in an Afghan valley with a group of vengeance-seeking rebels on their tracks.
Ooh.
That's exactly what the movie's about, and it is intense. This movie is very, very intense.
Graphic.
And let me just say, for this type of movie in this type of time, this movie did not pick up enough steam that it really should have in the theaters. In fact, this movie was only screened in 2 theaters at the time, when it should have been screened in every single theater.
Yeah, I know. Well, first we should shout out, right? One of our listeners recommended this movie.
Oh, yes. Nick.
Yes.
That's it.
So
Nick.
Thank you to Nick for bringing this to our attention.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick, for letting us know all about The Beast, because I'm very glad that I watched this movie.
Such an underrated movie that more people need to see.
And I think the main reason that this movie wasn't screened in every single theater in 1988, I'm just going to throw it out there from an article I read, Rambo 3.
Pretty much, right? So when the movie was picked up by Columbia Pictures, it was under one ownership. And then during filming, the ownership changed at Columbia. And with the change, the new owners were like, well, we're going to make more money off of Rambo and its depiction of Afghanistan, right, than we are in this indie film from this director no one's heard about with, you know, not super popular actors in it. So we're going to put all of our money towards Rambo. So they only showed The Beast in 2 theaters just to meet like its contract obligations because it had to show it in theaters. But they kind of like swept it under the rug, which is so unfortunate because this movie, I mean, as we'll talk about, like plot wise, acting wise, just like the meanings behind it is just so good and so important. Right. And I mean, I haven't seen Rambo 3, so I guess I can't make an accurate comparison.
And I mean, people, of course, with Rambo 3 being the third of the Rambos, and everyone knows. I mean,
they're shoot 'em up movies.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone knows who Sylvester Stallone is, and also with that statement that the actors in this film no one had heard of. If no one had heard of Stephen Baldwin at the time, then someone needs to be.
I don't think anyone had. This is young, Adam, like 1980s. I don't know how big the Baldwins were back then.
He was young. That's crazy.
But just the morality you get out of this movie, which is something that I think we'll touch on because it's important, right? Like the beast of war, literally like what war does to people and the effect it has on your psyche. I think this movie does a really good job of looking at that and seeing both sides of the war, right? So we see the Soviet side, but then we also see the Afghani side. And it's just, I think that's something we'll go into, so I don't want to go into it too much right now. But needless to say, this movie should have way more hype than it does.
Well, let's start by talking a little bit on the technical side of things, just with some of the names that are sort of painting the picture of this film, just so we can say our appreciation of, wow, the people who made this thing are some of the bigger names. Kevin Reynolds himself, he is the director of this, and maybe at the time people weren't aware of his.
This is like one of his first films he directed. He had a small cult classic film before it, Fandango, but Beast of War was like his second feature film.
So perhaps at the time people weren't really sure who Kevin Reynolds was. Maybe Kevin Reynolds didn't have much of a name for himself at the time. But Laura, you seem to be a big fan of Kevin Reynolds' work.
Yes.
Why don't you let us know some of the other films that Kevin Reynolds has been a director of?
Let's do it. After Beast of War, next movie, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. One of my favorite movies. I actually forced you to watch this not that long ago, like a month or two ago, maybe. Such a great movie. Kevin Costner, Alan Rickman. Obviously, it's about Robin Hood.
Well, and Kevin Reynolds seems to have a great collaboration with Kevin Costner.
Right, because then his next big movie was Waterworld, which also has Kevin Costner in it. And then also, Kevin Reynolds has done The Count of Monte Cristo, which is an amazing movie, if no one has seen that. Guy Pearce, Jim Caviezel. Obviously, it's based on the book, Count of Monte Cristo. Such a good movie. I'm going to force Adam to watch it tonight after we finish recording this. And then he's also done Tristan and Isolde, which is maybe not such as great of a movie. And the TV series Hatfield McCoys, which, Adam, you loved the theme song for.
It is a great one. And I saw the band live that does the theme song for Hatfields and McCoys. So
yeah, so some good credits under his name. I do like a lot of his stuff.
It is a great line of things that Kevin Reynolds has been a part of, that he has directed. And another big thing I just wanted to point out real quick, as we were talking about this movie not getting the awareness that it should have, was the budget that was on this film and the amount of money that it made in the box office. Unfortunately, it did not make that much money in the box office. And just to point that out, the budget for this film was apparently around $8 million. The box office numbers was $161,000. So,
but how did they make this movie for only $8 million? That seems like a small budget for what they accomplished in this film.
It does, doesn't it? And when watching this movie, it really seems like everything was shot right on location.
Yeah, well, it was. They shot in Israel. I mean, not in Afghanistan, but close. So the film was shot in Israel. And they bought the tanks. Like, the tank they used in the film is a legit tank that the Israeli army captured during the Israeli-Arab conflict, I think. So the film, the crew bought the tank like from the Israeli military, and the RPG, the big shooty gun thing they use. So, like, was most of the budget then to buy that tank?
I don't know. I mean, owning a tank would be incredibly expensive.
I feel like that had to have been most of the budget.
The actors are like, don't pay us, just buy the tank.
You just spend all the money on the tank.
Just buy that tank, and here's my money.
Because, so I was reading that the film's military advisor, his name was Dale Dye, he met like a bunch of leaders of the Israeli Defense Force in a hotel and just was drinking with them. And while there was like, I'm going to buy this tank and this RPG from you, which is what they used in the movie. So I don't know. It's crazy to think of. That had to have been the budget.
Well, let's slide into the actual movie now, the real beast of the situation here. And I'm curious to ask your opinion on the introduction of this movie, the opening scene, because when I first started watching this movie and I saw the opening scene, one of the things that stood out to me was not only the cinematography itself. It's not just B-roll or just, scenes that aren't the characters of the movie. It's not just shots of scenery. It's not just filler shots, but it is a lot of open space. They are giving you a lot of scenery. And the music in this movie is very ambient and very what are the adjectives I'm looking for here, Laura? It is very
ambient and like
filling.
Ethereal kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're talking about music right now, really quickly, right? It was written and performed by Mark Isham, who is like a trumpeter and a synth player who really focuses a lot of his work in jazz and electronic, which makes total sense then, like thinking back on the music that's in the movie. The music fits so well, though. Like, it's not overbearing. And even though it is kind of this like jazzy vibe, which doesn't really mesh right with being in Afghanistan, it works.
I think it just gave such an aura for the entire film, no matter where you were in the movie. Mm-hmm. But especially when I was watching the opening of this movie, having not seen, the entire film at that point, when you first started watching this movie, it really puts you in the situation of watching the war happening. You're seeing all this gunfire. And then all of a sudden you're hearing these synthesizers and just kind of this, noise, going with the synthesizers and everything. And it's kind of like, whoa, what kind of like time traveling,
it really is like
presence.
Encompassing. Yeah. It just kind of like wraps you right and like puts you in the movie. The music's so good. I don't think I have never really heard of the guy before, Mark Ishmael. I don't know. I know I saw that he did a few other movies. So he did music for Crash. Adam, do you like that movie? Crash. Yeah. And The Hitcher and Point Break. I haven't seen those ones actually, but
I mean, it makes sense because I think with movies like Crash or a movie like The Beast, what I think this kind of music is really trying to do is get you in this sort of like mental presence, so to speak. Not only are you watching action happen, gunfire, things like that, you're watching this war happen, and especially with the opening scene, when you see gunfire happening, shots, the Russians show up in this tank, gunfire happening.
They demolish a town, right?
Right.
Like murder women, children.
They're murdering women. They're murdering innocents, basically. People who have done nothing for the war. People who are not even firing guns. They're murdering people who do not deserve to be murdered. And then they're showing this very violent character who shows no sympathy. And that music then, that seems like it could be innocent music, is layered onto someone with absolutely no innocence.
Yeah.
And that's what this music is doing, is then affecting your mentality as a viewer. It's creating that like mental awareness where then you're watching this movie and thinking like, wow, now my brain is put to work. Now I'm thinking a lot as I watch this movie, like, whoa, what am I supposed to be thinking?
No, I agree. It really pulls you in, right? And like, forces you to pay attention and see, like, I mean, I think I said it before, the horrors of war and what it does to people on both sides, right? Like, I don't think this movie, there's a baddie, but overall, you know, I think this movie does a really good job of making you think and decide who do you side with, right? Like, do you side with the Soviets? Do you side with the Afghanistans? And I think that's a good thing in this movie, in that there's not really a side to side with. I mean, I kind of end up siding with the Afghanistans, right? Because, you know, they're the underdog rebels, but both sides do bad. So it's an interesting film in that regard. And I think the music just helps kind of set that in motion.
It was kind of a confusing thought that I had when I first started watching the movie was, am I supposed to be siding with the Afghanistans in this movie? Or is the director trying to set this up where I'm going to be siding with the Afghanistans, or am I going to be siding with the Russians? Because as I started watching this movie, I was thinking, well, I'm going to assume that they're going to want me to side with, you know, the Russians. That's my assumption. Not that I'm going to. I'm just going to assume that this movie's going to make me think that. And then as the movie progressed, I very quickly realized, like...
Well, even after the first scene, when they just massacre a whole town, then you're like...
That's when I realized that after they massacred the whole town, I'm kind of like, these Russians don't seem like good people. Like, I don't
The Soviets.
Yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to be...
But the way you say that, the whole point of this movie is, I think you can't blame one person for the collective. You know what I mean? Like, right. Like, which is probably a deeper thing than we need to talk about, because I don't know if we want to go deep into war and like our thoughts on war
Sure.
and things, right? So, but you know, this movie definitely makes you see that like one person isn't the entire country. So, you know, like the main character, who I call Glasses, I don't remember his real name, the guy with the glasses, the main Soviet guy, right? Like, he is a Soviet soldier, but at the same time he is like he's rethinking things, right? And he's realizing that what they're doing isn't good. But still, he came to this war like against the Afghanistans, but then he meets them, I'm jumping ahead, and he learns that like they're good people and they're civilized, and this is who he relates to. And so I think it's a broader picture of war. I think when it came out, I think this was kind of an analogy on the Vietnam War and how bad that was. And I do think there could be more discussion about war and there is no good, in my opinion, of war. I'm starting to dive down into a hole I don't want to get to. So Adam,
Sure.
take over from where I'm getting into. Let's start talking about this movie.
Well, I think Kevin Reynolds also said that he had American actors playing the Russians because it was supposed to be sort of
right. I think he is trying to put this in. I think he wants American people to view this and be like, this is what happened in Vietnam.
Correct.
You know, this is Soviets and Afghanistans, but what you see here is exactly what was happening with Americans in Vietnam. And like you said, yeah, all of the actors for the Soviets are American. They have American accents. They use American lingo and jargon. You know, it's it's American film, but like you said, he did that on purpose to kind of make you think and relate to the Vietnam War, which had just happened, you know, a few years before this movie.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that was what happened there. And as things progress in this movie, it's truly in my simplest terms of explaining the movie, it's truly about the Afghanistan, the Afghani, and the Russians who are in this tank. And those are the two groups that this film follows.
Yeah.
And the Russians in the tank, they have all sorts of problems with not only their tank, but themselves. And what it truly falls onto is the leader of the Russians in the tank.
The commander.
Which I believe his name here is Daskal. He is ruthless. He is a ruthless commander.
Well, I think war has gotten to him. He's going a little
He has got some serious problems. Call it what you will, whether that be PTSD, or stress or
I mean, I think it's a combination of everything. It's the beast of war, right? The ravages of what happens.
I think he is truly the beast of war. Like,
well, he in the end, yeah, he definitely turns out to be. So, I mean, because we said, the film opens with the Soviets massacring this town, and then the men from that town like come back and realize everyone's dead. So Taj is now like the Khan, the leader of this group of people. And since the Soviets had just killed his brother and his father, he sets out to get revenge for them, right? So him and a few of his men, along with like who he thinks, I mean, he calls him his cousin. I don't know if he actually is his cousin, right? This guerrilla like leader, they then set out to track down the tank and try and destroy it. And the tank is trying to run away, but it's falling apart. Like, it doesn't have much gas left. They don't have a lot of rations. And the Soviets inside the tank are slowly losing their minds.
Exactly. And their leader, Deskal, he is, so to say, a horrible leader. I mean, he has no sympathy for any of the other Russians in the tank.
Oh, no. And he's
absolutely none.
He's so quick to turn against. So one of the Soviets there is, who I'm assuming is also in Afghanistan. It's the man from The Mummy. The actor from The Mummy.
The best way to remember.
I don't have good names for people in this movie. I call them Glasses, the commander,
and the man from
Taj,
The Mummy.
and the man from The Mummy. So
and Stephen Baldwin.
And Stephen Baldwin, yeah. That's how I explain everyone. So Glasses, who is like the main character, right? He starts to question what they're doing. You can tell that even in the beginning when the commander tells him to run over that guy with the tank and he's like halting and hesitating. You can tell he's starting to question what they're doing. And he befriends the guy from The Mummy, who is also a Soviet soldier, but he is Muslim. And through him, he starts to learn about Muslim culture and their ideas. And, and he starts to realize, like, these are civilized people. They have this ideology. I mean, the main thing, right, that happens in this movie are the Nanawatai, the idea of, like, giving sanctuary to an enemy if they request it, right? Like, this is a very civilized thing. But then the opposite side, you have the bad guy, the commander, who is just losing it, and he thinks that the guy from The Mummy is a traitor because he's Muslim, so obviously he's a bad guy, and he murders him, like, straight up just kills him for no reason.
Yeah, tells him to go see how deep the water is, and he walks out into the water, and he tells him to keep going and see what the ground is made of.
Yeah.
Keeps going out into the water and then just machine guns him down.
I think that, first, before that, he told Glasses to kill him, and Glasses refused to. And I think that's when I realized in the movie, like, the commander is losing it.
The commander's cray-cray.
And and he is going to be the antagonist, right, of the movie. He is the baddie.
After that point, the commander tried numerous times of murdering numerous people, so...
Well, yeah, because then, I guess as we're going through the movie, right, he kills the guy from The Mummy. They keep trying to run away or get back to, like, the Soviet base. But like I said, they don't have any brake fluid because the other guy that's not Stephen Baldwin has been drinking it. He's like drinking brake fluid, which is
not good.
Yeah, okay. So they don't have brake fluid. They don't have rations. They're running out of missiles for the tank also. And Glasses really starts to question what he's doing, right? He's like, you killed this man. You're having us out here for nothing. Like, we need to abandon the tank, essentially. And the commander's like, how dare you? The tank is my baby. I will never leave it. So he just
says it like Elvis, basically. How dare you?
He is my baby. That was Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh, excuse me. I'm Daniel Craig and Inside Out.
Yeah, no, Knives Out. Inside Out.
It's the Pixar version of Knives Out.
But anywho, the commander leaves Glasses on a rock, just tied to a rock with a grenade under his head. Right? So, like, he's crazy. Crazy. Did you know Glasses was the lead in The Lost Boys?
That would
Not
make sense.
Kiefer Sutherland, but, like, the guy that starts to turn, right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
That just randomly came to my head. Sorry. I'm all over the place this episode. Anywho, Adam, continue then.
I don't even know where you left off. You're talking about the Lost Boys now.
And I left off with Glasses being left on a rock.
So he was left on a rock because clearly our wonderful Russian leader, Daskal, only cares about his tank, doesn't care about anybody else. And he especially doesn't care about our Glasses man, who suggested just surrender to the Afghani.
He even just said to leave the tank and like walk.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. Just leave the tank and walk. And even if it means surrendering, like, just do it. Just stop what we're doing, because they're not going to live if they keep going in the tank, because the tank's going to stop. They don't have enough supplies to keep that tank going. And the leader, Daskal, he's like, absolutely not. We're going to keep going in the tank. And he doesn't care. All he cares about is the tank. So
Mutiny!
So they tie him to a rock. They put a grenade under his head. And that's the end of that there. And what happens next, of course, is a group of women from Afghanistan. They find him tied to the rock. And their first reaction is, you know, the Russians suck, so we're going to chuck rocks at him.
Well, the woman is the woman from the town that they massacred in the beginning, and she recognizes Glasses as the man that ran over her fiance. She was going to marry that guy they ran over. That's what it was saying. So, of course, she's like, this is the man that killed my love, so I'm going to throw rocks at him and stone him.
Well, of course, that makes sense. I mean, it sucks for the guy with the glasses, because he's like, please, like, I don't want to hurt anybody. And she's not going to have that. She's going to chuck rocks at him.
He murdered her love.
Yeah.
But that's when he uses what he learned from the mummy man and asks for Nanawatai, whatever. And it means like sanctuary.
Which is very smart that he asked for that, because then actually some of the people that show up are like, hey, he's asking for it.
Right. So Taj, the Khan, and like the guerrilla leader and all them show up, and they're like, well, we have to give him sanctuary. You know, we're better men. He asked for it, and this is our belief system, so we've got to do it. And can I say, the guy that plays Taj, I think he was a really great actor, and I think he played the role really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Where he's like questioning his role as a leader, but still being understanding, right? And like wanting to work with this Soviet who murdered his brother and father, but wanting to work with him, right, to get revenge on this tank. I just think the actor did a really good job of that character and making him really dynamic.
Yeah, it's very interesting that they can ask for Nanawate or Nanawatai for, like, if an enemy can do that, and they're like, well, yeah, we'll give you sanctuary.
Did you know that's also part of the pirate code? Do you remember that from Pirates of the Caribbean? Elizabeth is captured by the pirates and she asks for parley, and so they have to take her to Jack.
I did not remember.
Or not
that.
Jack, maybe it's Davy Jones, whoever it is. Yeah, it's like a thing too. She asks parley, which is like, you know, you have to take me to your leader. You can't hurt me.
I did not remember that.
There's another one of my fun facts.
Boy, I'll have to remember this when I run out of facts and things like that. Just give Laura a call. Oh boy, that's why we keep you around. We left off with him being in sanctuary, so.
Well, I mean, Glasses is taken by Taj and the rest of the Afghanistans, and they take him into a cave, and that's when they start to try and communicate with him and get him to help them, right? That's when Taj does that whole thing where he pretends the rocks are the tanks and stuff and shows him, like, we're going to go after the tank, and we have this RPG, and you know how to work the RPG, so kaboom,
I think it was
tank.
a great little discussion they had when he was taken into sanctuary. It was
Kaboom
like,
tank.
It made me think I was back in kindergarten and I was having a nice little discussion out in the playground, and it's kind of like drawing pictures and having a nice little action figure battle, and he's like, okay, so draw with a stick, draw a little circle, and it's like, this is my little character and this is my tank, and
we go here.
My tank takes over
Tank
your
goes
tank,
here.
and this tank draws around this circle, and tank goes kaboom, and then we all laugh, and now we go and get some Capri Sun. And
I don't think they had Capri Sun in the cave in Afghanistan, but they did give him bread. So they shared some bread. And then they make the decision that together they will kaboom tank.
and then watch Scooby-Doo. But
I mean, the crazier thing is, right, like while that's happening, while they decide to go after the tank is actually found by a helicopter and they think they're going to be saved, Baldwin and the other guy. But the commander's like, get your ass out of that
commander
helicopter.
is such a piece of garbage. I mean, come on.
He like, take all the extra fuel and get your ass back in that tank because we're not leaving it.
Okay, that commander's never going to get to watch an episode of Scooby-Doo because he's such a jerk. Like, it starts with 5 guys in a tank and, Commander 1 being the leader. And then, one member leaves. He gets shot by a machine gun because the commander's like, well, we can't trust him because he's going to tell everyone else on us. Okay, now everyone else get back in the tank. Everyone else gets back in the tank. Another one tells the commander, like, can't keep doing this. And it's like, well, can't trust you, so you leave. And it's just like everyone just keeps going down and down because it's just like when one guy can't trust anyone, again, it's like he is the true beast. You want to call the movie The Beast thinking the beast is the tank? No. The real beast is the dude who is leading everyone inside of that tank.
Well, and it's so unfortunate for Stephen Baldwin and the other guy because they're just so afraid of him. They know he'll kill them, right? So that's why they go back to the tank. I was like, just stay in the helicopter. But the commander would have shot the helicopter down, right? They're like...
He would have killed everyone on the helicopter.
Kill us, everyone. Maybe at least we'll save their lives, right? The 2 of us will just go back to the tank. So just... crazy. But so the tank is stuck in a valley, a cul-de-sac, and so they have to go back through this one pass to get out. And then the Afghanistans realize this, so they're like, now we realize where the showdown's gonna happen, right? Like they're gonna trap the tank in this valley and they're gonna shoot the RPG at it and destroy it.
It was absolutely ridiculous. Was it Stephen Baldwin that looked like Machine Gun Kelly in this movie?
I don't know. Him and the other guy kind of looked alike. I'm not sure which one you were referring to when you said it.
He literally had blonde hair and everything.
Well, they both were like blonde. The Stephen Baldwin was the one who got his like ear shot up by the grenade. So he had that bandage around his head for like the second half.
I think that might have been him.
Machine Gun Kelly. I don't know. Oh, he's around our age. I don't think he was alive though when the movie came out. So
no.
He might be a little older than us, actually. Maybe he was born in 88, but...
That's pretty crazy. But, yeah, so it's pretty interesting. And it is crazy to see the type of personality that the commander in this movie had, the way he treated the soldiers, and the way it really plays out to see our Glasses character working with the Afghani to take out the tank. And the ways that they try to take out this tank. Another thing that really ticked me off was when they are pursuing the tank and they're trying to take it off. They run into that helicopter. Well, they run into another helicopter, actually. The first one lands, gives them fuel, and the tank keeps going. The second helicopter they run into was one that landed in the desert, and everyone's dead because they drink poisoned water that was poisoned by the Russians.
Yeah, they killed their own men.
What irony, though, because they poisoned the water originally to kill the Afghani soldiers, and then it's like a 360 here, because once they went one way with the tank and come back, then in a turn of events, a Russian helicopter had landed, and it just turned out that the Russians that were in that helicopter had drank that same water and ended up killing themselves. So they didn't know that water was poisoned. And it's kind of like, well, that's what happens when you poison water out here. So
bad things happen during war.
It is awful. And where I was going with that helicopter, though, was that the tank first sees that helicopter there and decides, okay, we have to keep going because we're being chased by Afghanistan soldiers here. And so they keep going. But then as the soldiers get there to try and catch the tank, then half the soldiers are like, well, we found what we need. We just wanted this helicopter.
They don't even know how to fly it.
You can just go after that tank, but we just want the helicopter. They don't even know how to use the helicopter. They're just kind of like, well, this is all we wanted.
He was like, can you learn how to fly this? And the guy's like, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just sit here and push some buttons. I'll figure it out.
I don't know what I'm doing, but okay.
But Taj and Glasses and a few other guys still go after the tank.
My gosh, yes, and they keep that going, and that's what's most important is that they're going after the tank. So they keep going, and sure enough, they keep on chasing that tank. And
the tank shooting at them.
The tank's shooting at them. They're going after the tank. That was a pretty crazy scene, though, for them trying to get that tank because our glasses guy has an RPG with no missile first to start. So he's got the RPG, no missile. He tells Taj, like, I need the missile. He gets the missile chucked at him by Taj.
Cannot be safe.
No, chucking an RPG missile at somebody is probably not safe at all. But he gets the missile chucked at him. He catches it. He shoots the RPG missile at the tank and only shoots at the cannon, so it doesn't quite take the tank out.
So the tank's like, ah, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
We're free.
We're okay. We can leave. And sure enough, they don't get out because who better to take them out than our group of grenade-wielding girls?
The women!
Yes.
They kick ass in this movie, man.
They blow up a bunch of rocks at the top of the mountain, take out the tank down below.
So good. I was so happy when I realized it was the women. As soon as the rocks fell, I knew it was them. I was like, oh, it was those women. They had those grenades. They were the ones that did it. And then they show up on top of the hill, and I was like, yes.
That was also a nice turn of events because throughout the movie, they were told numerous times to just go home,
right,
by a bunch of men.
We're the men. We will do it.
Yeah.
And they're like,
sexism.
Fuck you.
Sexist men.
But so the tanks finally stopped. But the nice thing, like, here you realize, too, that just the humanity of, like, the Afghanistans and glasses. Like, they let the 3 Soviet soldiers that are left, the commander, Stephen Baldwin, and the other guy, they let them go. Like, they don't even kill him, right? They're like, just start running. Like, get out of here.
They almost got killed, though.
Well, the commander does. The women catch up to him.
No, I mean, even the other guys almost got killed.
Well, right. But
it was
then
the glasses
like,
guy that stepped in and was like, just like...
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, you don't want to... At that point, it's like, you're killing just to kill, you know? Again, we don't need to go into a deep theory on war. But so glasses, nope. Baldwin and the other guy are, I mean, who knows if they live? They run out into the desert. They could die in the desert on their own. But the women catch up to the commander and kill him.
He kind of gives up on them, though, because he's lagging behind.
Well, he
Stephen
knows
Baldwin,
they're going to get him, yeah.
And he knows that they're going to kill him, and he kind of just stops himself. It's kind of like he's not even going to keep running. He just kind of caves in. But there's also an earlier scene where he almost willingly kills himself inside of the tank.
Well, yeah, rather than be captured.
Right.
But Baldwin and the other guy stop him.
So I think it kind of goes hand in hand there, where it's like if he sees them running after him, about to kill him, it's kind of like...
But wouldn't it be a disgrace to have been killed by women in his eye? Right? Like, I feel like that's worse. He probably would have been way happier just grenading himself inside the tank.
Yeah, perhaps that's true.
I don't know, I don't know the man.
I feel like as a guy, he probably just would have rather died or just would have wanted to die, but perhaps in a war... then you'd rather take your own life than have someone else take it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a debatable subject.
I also wanted to bring up 2 lines that happen like right before Glasses lets the 3 Soviets go. So while they gotten him out of the tank, right, and they're standing there and they're talking, and Glasses kind of says like 2 lines that I thought were really poignant for this movie. So first one, he's like, "How are we the Nazis?" Right? Like, everyone, the Nazis were horrible. World War II, we know that. But in the Afghans' eyes, during this war and the Soviets' invasion of Afghanistan, like, the Soviets are the Nazis. And Glasses is realizing that. So, like, that quote of, like, how did we become the Nazis? I just thought that was such a great line. And then the second one, too, was where he was like, you can't be a good soldier in a rotten war. I just thought those 2 lines really brought home the whole idea of what this movie was.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, very intense movie, very intense subject, and very quickly not to ease out of the film, so to speak, but I want to ease into what the film who the film was written by. William Metro Simone?
Metro Simone. I think so.
William Metro Simone. So William, what a last name. William Metro Simone was the one who wrote this, wrote the screenplay for this film.
Originally a play.
It was originally a play.
Yeah.
Kevin Reynolds saw the play and was just moved. And basically, after seeing the play, it was kind of like, why don't we make this into a movie? And Kevin Reynolds and William Metro Simone basically collaborated from that point on into turning this into a movie. So we now have The Beast. And from William Metro Simone, before this became a play, it was something that William Metro Simone basically lived. So this isn't entirely, 100% true story necessarily, but a lot of the things that are in The Beast are based on subjects and things that have happened in William Metro Simone's life. And it's pretty crazy. That it is pretty intense to know that, he went to Afghanistan and he has seen and been through times that have looked and happened quite like a lot of the things that are in this movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, he snuck into Afghanistan while the invasion was happening. So he was there while it was happening. He met some Afghanistanis at a restaurant in New York City and asked them to get him into Afghanistan. So they were like, all right, be in Pakistan at this hotel. So he goes to Pakistan, goes to this hotel, and then these men show up and essentially like smuggle him into Afghanistan and take him through the mountains, right? And he's like stranded there because he can't move. But then he's come upon by these villagers who like nurse him back to health. So yeah, you can definitely see a lot of parallels with what he experienced while he was there and what happens in this movie.
I believe he also drank poisoned water while he was in Afghanistan too.
Yeah, I think so. Like poisoned or just like bad water or something. And it definitely made him really, really sick, which is why they left him. They're like, we can't carry you, man. You're dead weight. So they just leave him.
It's crazy. But you can see a lot of those things. Again, you can see a lot of those things carry over into the plot line of The Beast. You can see that there is poisoned water in The Beast. You can see, a lot of things like that.
Men are left for dead.
Men are left for dead.
Understanding like the Islamic or Muslim culture and their ideology, like that's something he experienced too while he was there. So yeah, definitely a lot of parallels.
So it's crazy. It's crazy to see how this film has played out. And again, I have to say it is very unfortunate that this movie has not gained as much recognition as I think it really should have. So with that being said, let's talk about any sort of reviews that may be out there right now.
Barely any, but I mean, it doesn't even have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is
that's just so
crazy,
strange, so
yeah.
bizarre. But in terms of an audience score, it is at 85% right now with 2,500 plus ratings, which
that's
that
good.
At least is good.
Yeah,
that's very good to see.
I agree with that score. I mean, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think that's very, very good to see.
Other than that, I couldn't find a whole lot. I mean, there's a few like random articles of people that watched it and reviewed it, but I feel like generally from those articles, it all has pretty good reviews, like at least 3.5 stars to 4 or higher.
Yeah, and I think that's good.
I did think it was interesting, too, at the very, very end of the movie. There's this camaraderie, right, between Glasses and Taj gives him, like, this rifle, and it seems like, they're brothers now. But then a Soviet helicopter flies by and Glasses goes back with them, which makes sense, right? He needs to go back to like his world and what he knows. But like, could he really go back and fight again for the Soviets after just being on the side of the Afghanistans and like killing a commander, essentially?
Yeah, I wonder how his thought process is going to be coming home from that, where it's one side you're with the Russians and then your captain is constantly betraying you. So then you're helping the other side and you see that they're innocent and you're helping them. And then you have to go back to the Russians to go back to your family. And it's like,
I definitely think he's going to be a little messed up.
Yeah, what is the right or
after.
wrong when you finally get home?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. So I think that brings us to our final slurps up or slurps down section for this discussion. Listeners, if this is the first time you've listened to our show, the slurps up means that we enjoyed the movie or liked it, so you give it a slurps up, and slurps down means it's not a good one. It's not good, and you give that one a slurps down. So, Laura, what is it for you?
Definitely a slurps up. I think originally I was saying 3.5 out of 5 stars, but now I'm rethinking and I'm like, maybe I'd bump that up to 4. It's because I think I would bump it up to 4. It's a great film. I mean, as you can tell from the review that we've done, I just think the humanity that you see within it and the morality and just the, the thought provokingness of it and what it makes you think about war and how it affects people. So much about this movie I just thought was done so well. And you're engaged, and you're like looking at both sides of this and really relating, but like hating both, overall, just so good. I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. I'm guessing, Adam, you are the same, but maybe you'll surprise me.
Absolutely not. No. Yeah, for this film, I would certainly give this a slurps up. And I think this film gives a great look at, the war in general, really. And I think it's a really captivating look at the mental state during a war situation. I think certainly I have never participated in a war. I've never been a part of the military, but if I were a part of the war, this certainly gives me a very interesting look if I was a part of the war. And I wonder sometimes if I were to participate in a war, what my mental state would be like. If I had to imagine being in a different country as a soldier or something like that, if I would be thinking like the antagonist of this film, if I would be like the captain of that tank and really losing my mindset for some of the soldiers that I was overseeing, or if I would be more like the character we were describing, Glasses. His name was not technically Glasses, but we call him Glasses.
That's what I call him.
If I would be more like that and have a bit more of an open mindset to care for people around me, I would certainly hope so. It's really interesting to see the varying personalities between these characters. And that is my real interest in this movie, is to see the varying mindsets of the characters, particularly how war affects these people. And that was really what pulled me into this movie, was to see how greatly affected these characters were because of the war, and how war could greatly affect any one of us if we were a part of it. And I think this movie is true to the situation. If any one of us were put into a war, and especially in a situation if there was a giant tank taking over innocent people in a situation like that, it's just a crazy complex scenario. And I was really just so overwhelmed by the situation, and especially with the music too. I think I just really loved the way it was contrasted with the music. You have this very easygoing music in the background and this serious action with a gigantic tank. It is a very interesting film in the best way possible. So definitely going to give it a slurps up. It's really interesting, and I wish more people knew about this movie.
Nice.
That's that, everybody. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode. We really appreciate that. And we're going to sail on into our solo plug time on where you can catch us. Laura, where can some people catch you?
You can find me on TikTok at rdlou, ARTIELU, or Instagram at LHERLOCHER.
And you can find me on Instagram, on SoundCloud, on Twitter, at Adam Mizner. I make original music. I cover music from time to time. If there's something you want to hear me make, just let me know, and I will record it for you. I will record it for myself. I'll record it for the whole world. Just let me know. And that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, just about any podcast streaming service. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies that you want to hear about, just let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it, always and forever. So closing out, this is Adam Mizner.
And I'm Laura Herlocher.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.